Hi there, my name's Jeff Broomfield and I'm a hypnotist. And a friend sent me a link to a video where Dr. Robert Malone was being interviewed by Joe Rogan, and he said that people were being hypnotized into something called mass formation psychosis. And so I wanted to respond to this and talk about whether or not people can be hypnotized into some mass psychosis like that. And I think this is a really important thing to address here. And this is an area where I'm an expert in this area. And not only do I do hypnosis, I am also a trainer of hypnosis. I am also a master practitioner of NLP, or neuro-linguistics programming is called. And that's about the use of language. And I've really studied about how to influence people all of my life. I grew up in a family business, and I've read about, the power, how to win friends and influence people. I think I was probably a teenager when I read that book. And so I've really been into this kind of stuff all my life. And I've studied psychology, in business. I grew up in the communications industry. So when you look at advertising and marketing and stuff, and how color affects perception and all that kind of stuff. And so I really know about this kind of stuff. So I thought I would address this. So Malone began asking about what happened in Germany in the 20s and 30s. And he said they were a very intelligent, highly educated population, and they went barking mad. And how did that happen? And then he answered his own question saying mass formation psychosis. Now, he continued on saying that when you have a society that has become decoupled from each other and has free-floating anxiety in a sense that things don't make sense and we can't understand it, and then their attention gets focused by a leader or a series of events on one small point, just like hypnosis, and they literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere. And so that's all from this whole interview. That is all I want to address. That one point here, that is, they get focused just like hypnosis, and they literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere. And so I want to say, first of all, that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And so if you don't want to be led somewhere, you're not going to be led somewhere. It's as easy as that. In order for hypnosis to work, you have to follow the instructions. If I said close your eyes and feel the sensation of relaxation, and if you went, and now you can open your eyes, and if you did that, then you're hypnotized. If you didn't do that, then you resisted the hypnosis, and resisting hypnosis is just that easy. All right? Hypnosis is something that when you come to a hypnotist, you say, hey, I want to see a hypnotist. I got this problem. I want to fix it. The hypnotist doesn't come to you and force hypnosis on you to make you change. Right? There's other things that you can do to force people to make change. There's other ways to influence people. Hypnosis utilizes influence, but influence isn't hypnosis. And so you can influence people using the same strategies that we use in hypnosis, but you're not using hypnosis. When you're doing sales, you can use anchoring. And this comes from the science. It's about Pavlov's dog, if you've heard of that. And this is where the scientist would ring the bell and bring the dog a steak, and they would salivate. And then after a while, he'd take the steak out of there, just ring the bell, and then the dogs would salivate. They were conditioned to respond to the bell now. And so this is all about what anchoring is. And so when you anchor somebody in sales and you are talking about something that the potential client might like, then you anchor them in some way. And it could be, a touch on the arm. It could be, a noise. They could tap and make a noise. They could nod their head or something. Some way they actually mark it in some way. And they elicit some positive events in there a few times. And then after that, when they bring up the question, do you want to buy my product? And then they mark, so if it's a tap on the arm, then they tap on the arm. So that's an anchor. And that yes response was anchored to that a few times. And now when they ask the question, they hit the anchor and the person's been anchored and they will respond yes. And, it doesn't always work, but it is a tactic that's used. And just because a sales guy's using it doesn't make it hypnosis what he's doing. He's using anchoring, but he's not using hypnosis. So if somebody is getting people to believe something that's not true, that's not what hypnosis is. That is lying and manipulation. That's a totally, totally different thing. Since all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, then you have to decide that you're going to be led there. Now, is it a psychosis, or have people been misled? Or maybe people just trust, because a lot of what goes on is that if somebody is a good person and they're not a psychopath or a narcissist, then they can't see from their perspective. So if you try to say, oh, that person has a narcissistic tendency there, and they do this kind of thing and that kind of thing, because that person's not capable of doing that thing, they're projecting that on that other person. They can't possibly see how they could possibly do that. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, there are different things going on other than hypnosis. Hypnosis is a process that you do when you go and visit a practitioner who helps you solve a problem that you have. Hypnosis, although the same things that you can use in hypnosis also work, because hypnosis is about using best practices, things that work. And so, rapport. Rapport is a big part of hypnosis, and rapport is this state that you get into with another person, and matching and mirroring, we'll call it. So two people are talking in a restaurant, and you watch them from a distance, and you can see that they look like a mirror of each other when they're sitting there talking, and they're really engaged in the conversation. Then you see another couple of people that are sitting at a table, and they're not talking, they're not engaged, and they look different from each other. And so when you get into rapport, you become like each other, and you're in a conversation. Now, this rapport is something that you need in order to be able to get by a person's defense system and bypass their defense system and implant suggestions and stuff, if that's what you're doing. So you can do that in several ways. Now, hypnosis uses relaxation to get you into a state where suggestions can be embedded in when you're in this trance state. Now, if you are using it as an authority figure, if a person puts on a doctor's outfit with a stethoscope, then you instantly believe what the person's got to say because they are a figure of authority. And when you add fear, then you just give all of your decision-making power to that person, because when you're in fear, it's a stress state. It's called sympathetic. It's part of your nervous system, and it's one path that your nervous system takes when you're under threat. So if you have anxiety or fear of any kind, then what it does is it keeps you focused in the here and now. It doesn't allow you to go back into your memory. It doesn't allow you to access your critical thinking skills. You're in fear, and so you are focused on, you've either got to fight, you've got to run, or you're going to freeze. And so that's what anxiety is. And so you don't have access to your memory and stuff like that, because going to your memory will take away from you watching for this threat, whatever is coming. So you're in defense mode. And when you're in defense mode, you don't want to overthink. An animal jumps out at you and attacks you. You don't want to overthink your reaction. You want to notice that it's coming and automatically have some kind of response and, come out alive. That's what our protection system is there for. But when somebody hijacks that, it's not hypnosis. When you take fear and somebody comes in and preys on that fear. When you're in fear mode, you want a solution. So does mass formation psychosis exist? Well, a bunch of psychologists put a label to a bunch of behaviors that they have perceived and created it. And so that becomes what you call a pendulum. And a pendulum is something that doesn't actually exist, but you create it, and people believe in it, and their belief in it gives it energy. And so Bugs Bunny's not real, but we put that energy into Bugs Bunny, into believing that Bugs Bunny is real, and that makes Bugs Bunny real. So, and we do that with everything. If you look at the conservatives and the liberals, you know, both of those parties are something that have been made up. Their beliefs, each one is its own pendulum. And people get on board that pendulum train, and they drive that, and they give it energy, as much energy as they can. And so what really is going on here is that these guys have made this up. Now, are they right about these other people? Is that why? And I don't believe that that is necessarily, you can't just make a blanket statement like that, because not everybody is the same. There are some people who just follow and do what they're told, and they believe what they're told. And they can't see any reason why they should not trust or why they should doubt the people who are in authority. You know, whether that thinking is right or wrong or whatever. I'm not here to debate that right now. What I'm saying is that he's making that suggestion that it's some kind of psychosis, and that's why these people are falling, because they've been hypnotized. And really, if you go to a church, right, and no matter what church that you're in, or maybe you're not in church at all, you know, take your religion, look at the opposite guy's religion, right? They're being taught wrong stuff, obviously, right? Their ideas are wrong, and their ideas can't be right, because that'd be a paradox, and that just won't work. And so when you are faced with that and you start pointing at the other guy and you won't challenge your own beliefs here, you know, who knows who's right and who's wrong, because most of us haven't got the capability to know what's right or wrong. And those who say they do are overstating their capabilities. Okay, so what I believe is going on is that we vote for leaders who are charming and witty and talented. They're smooth talkers. They say whatever you want to hear. And you can be on both sides of the fence, and they could say something to each one of those that are completely opposite and make opposite promises, and they get away with it. They have a vision that they can share with people, and they have solutions and answers to questions that people have about certain things when they're getting voted in. And so they can create the kind of reality and the vision that people want to follow, and they get people on board with that. And now you'll be able to see this when you look at the opposite guy. So if you're a red, look at the blue, and if you're a blue, look at the red. Okay, and you know it's true about those guys because you're right and they're wrong. And so I grew up in a family business, and we had a family dynamic in there, and I've really researched this, and I found, you know, a lot of stuff from Harvard Business School that says that, and especially their psychology department, that talks about narcissism in business. And they'll tell you straight out that the qualities that a narcissist has is you need them to run a business and be successful, starting from the ground up. So in order to be able to do that, you need to be a narcissist and have those qualities. And a narcissist has those qualities because they're not capable of putting themselves in other people's shoes. So if they create hardship in another person, they don't feel any guilt or remorse about any of that kind of stuff. They can just do that. They can underpay somebody, and they can push them to overwork, and they don't really care about that. At the same time, though, they can make it seem like they do care. Although it's impossible. They can't, because it's just not in them. They've suffered some kind of a trauma, and they've closed that side of them down, and that's what's happened. And so that's what's going on there. So if we look at that, and the studies also show that the majority of CEOs are both narcissists and psychopaths. Not all of them are psychopaths. No, now, not all narcissists are psychopaths, but all psychopaths are narcissistic as well. And so these people put themselves on a pedestal, and they're above everybody else, and the rest of the people are like ants, and they have no care for these other people. They're not worthy of them. And so that's what a narcissist is. And they use certain kinds of strategies. They use the carrot and stick strategy. So they make a promise, right? And they hold that promise out there. And as you chase, they move that carrot and they keep moving it out. So they keep making a promise, and they keep moving the criteria. They keep moving the goalposts all the time. And they keep changing what they said. Well, originally you said if I did that. Oh, I didn't say that. So they didn't say what they said. And they make blanket statements about stuff and generalize. And they make nominalizations. So they use words that aren't really, like there is nothing there. So when you try to go and achieve, when you go after freedom, right? It's not something you can grab and take in your hand. And whether or not you have freedom, what you believe freedom is can change. So whether or not you have freedom changes based on what you believe what freedom is. So, those are the kind of things that they do to you to make you think that, safety, you're going to get safety, protection. These are things that you can't put in a wheelbarrow and have them. You can have the perception of them, but you can't actually have it. Then you have double blinds and stuff where if you're not this or that, you got your choice. Coke and Pepsi was a double blind. While everybody was focused on whether or not they like Coke and Pepsi, everybody gave up water and juice and stuff like that, right? So that was a double blind. Either way, the stock market owners, made their money. They utilize fear and threats. So, when the carrot and stick isn't working, then they use, they'll threaten you. They'll take things away from you. They vilify a scapegoat. So this is the way things are. There's a scapegoat over here. There's the bad person, and they'll do whatever they can to make that person responsible for all of the problems that their followers have. And it could be a person or a group of people, right? If you've been the scapegoat in the family or something like that, you know what I'm talking about. And they use shame and blame and guilt trips and stuff like that. These are all the strategies that the narcissist uses. Name calling. Name calling is a big one. And when you start calling people a certain name, that means that you don't have an argument to go on. And so you call them the name, and that basically dismisses and wipes out their whole argument. You're this, and I'm not going to bring up a certain term and name. I'm just not going to get into that discussion now. So, but when somebody's calling somebody names, right? They're using a narcissistic strategy. That's a toxic argumentation strategy. They use accusation smear campaigns. And a narcissist never admits they're wrong. They don't make mistakes. And, if they're to let people know that they made a mistake, well, that would be a weakness, and they wouldn't be as powerful as they think they are. So narcissists think they're godlike. Now, one of the big problems with that is that you'll notice that even though they make a mistake, a parent raising their kid a certain way and use a certain strategy, and they keep getting the same bad result all the time. And they keep blaming the kid for the result that they're getting. But really what happens is they keep using that same bad strategy and getting that same bad result. Whereas if the parent changes strategy, oh, geez, I was wrong. I changed my strategy, do it a little differently. Then all of a sudden, they get a different response from their kid. So when it comes to dealing with the public and you've got some big stuff going on and you've made a mistake, you never admit that you made a mistake. That's a narcissistic strategy. A person who's not a narcissist would say, oh, sorry, we made a mistake, and here's what we're doing to correct it. They'd be totally open and transparent about it. Now, the next thing that happens in the narcissistic environment is that you get your flying monkeys involved. That's a scientific term there that they use in psychology, flying monkeys. And so these are people that support. They don't necessarily have to be narcissists themselves, but they take on the narcissistic strategies that they've been taught, and they use them to support and enable the narcissist. They justify and normalize the narcissist's behavior. So if this is a dad who is beating his son, and then the mother comes in and says, yeah, well, you deserve that to the son, and that you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and justifies that the dad beat him because, well, he deserved it. Well, the dad should actually be using a different strategy, right? And that's what comes in when you deal with narcissism and psychopaths, is what kind of trauma have they suffered? And because of that trauma, they're not able to feel those things anymore because they buried them so far, right? Everybody can come back, everybody can feel everything, but when you bury it that deep and you're not willing to, then you won't. Some people shut themselves right off from that stuff. And that's what the narcissist does. The narcissist shuts themselves off from the inner being that's inside of themselves, and they can experience that, they can walk in it, and they have confidence in themselves, but the confidence that you see isn't real confidence. And so that's what I think is going on, is that people are following narcissists and they don't realize what's going on. There's a certain, that's another thing, is black and white. There's only two sides to the thing. That's part of the double bind. You're for me or you're against me, and that's all there is. That's the narcissist's way, right? So the truth is that there's a lot of different viewpoints than just A and B. And because you don't believe in A doesn't mean you believe all this other stuff that they say. So they make stuff up. They make claims about, and they misrepresent what the other side is to their followers to get them mad at that person. So, if somebody's been involved in a narcissistic relationship and they break up, then you know that the narcissist goes around talking about the other person and with a smear campaign. That's the way it works. That's the way these people are. And we're talking politics here. I mean, this is how politics is. They say in this world of psychology that we elect the narcissist. So the more narcissistic, the better the rise to the top. They're able to get in with other people. They're able to charm them. They're able to convince them to come on board with whatever it is that they're doing. And even though there is evidence to the contrary, if you've ever had a friend that, is stuck with a narcissist, and you keep, you see all this stuff, the science and the data is there. They're doing this and they're doing that. You just can't see it. And that person is blind to it, and they'll never see it. And so that's what happens to these other people, the people on the other side. They can't see. They're blind to their leader lying like that all the time. They only see the good. They decide, this is my team, and they only look for the good in that side, right? And so, and when they look at the other side, when they're looking back at you, they can only see the bad in you, because this is the way it works. You have, your team, and then you have the scapegoat. So no matter which side you're on, both sides are led by narcissists, and both are making the other side the scapegoat. And it's a battle that's going on back and forth. So, is it psychosis? I think there's a lot of lies and manipulation going on. I think that these people have studied, not just hypnosis is just a small part of what goes on. When you've been running societies and collecting data on people's responses for for centuries and centuries, you've got a lot to go on, and you know how people respond to different things. And so when you do things out in public, you can put together a mass, well, I'm calling them pendulums at the beginning here. So a mass belief in something, right? So you've got 80% of the public here in Canada that has gone and got their vaccinations. So a lot of people have bought into and believe that. You know, whether or not that's the right or wrong thing really is irrelevant for this discussion at the moment here. Whether or not it's the right or wrong thing, are they doing it because it's psychosis, or are they doing it because they were told to? Do they have to have psychosis if, let's say for argument's sake, that there is something wrong with it and there is some bad intentions from the people that are putting all this stuff together? Then does that mean they suffered from psychosis because they went and did that? Not necessarily. That means, were they deceived? Yeah, if that's the case, right? So whatever that is, it doesn't mean that these people are delusional. It doesn't mean that they suffer from some kind of psychosis because they bought the information. They trusted and they thought that what they were told was true. That's all there is to it. Now, whether or not it's true or not, that's not up for me to determine here, and that's not the reason for this. And so you might turn around and look at the other side that's making the accusation in the first place, and that all perception is a projection, so maybe they're the ones suffering from psychosis. And so whatever it is that's out there, whatever influence that these people are believing, and they're getting onto this belief and this pendulum, and you know, they're all riding the same train of belief, and it works. Leaders use that and they get people on board. And it's not just the leaders. The people who run these corporations put a lot of money into determining how to dominate their markets, how to manipulate things to their advantage so they can make as much money as possible. That's how it works in the corporate world. We're not talking politics when we're talking business. We're talking business. And business is run by, and the top CEOs are psychopaths and narcissists who don't care about anybody. And the government oversight is supposed to protect us against that kind of stuff. But when you let the narcissists infiltrate the top ranks of those organizations doing the protecting, then some funky stuff can start happening. So whatever's happening is happening. But as far as psychosis, the people believing this stuff, there's people that believe this stuff and support it and are in on it. There's people who are just being misled. There's people who are right about what they believe. And who's who knows, right? And it's always the other guy who's wrong. And that's the big thing here, is everybody wants to be right. Their decision, the people they picked, they're the one that's right. And they can't see why anybody would believe anything different than them. Like, why would anybody believe anything different than me? Well, you know, we're all unique, right? So we all have different experiences, and based on our different experiences, we see the world in different ways. And there's not just two ways of seeing things. And so if you open your eyes and you talk to other people about different reasons why they do what they do, then you can see from their standpoint. This is empathy. You see from their standpoint, and you know, you don't have to agree with them, but you can agree that based on their experience, that's what the conclusion you would come to. And then it's not so easy to discount them, right? And then you'll find out that each person has a unique belief based on a whole totally different set of criteria for them. And you know, you can't really knock each one. I mean, some people, you know, they just, you know, they gave their power of reasoning away and they put so-and-so in charge of that, and they're just going to believe whatever that person says. Make it easy. I'm just going with what Joe says and we'll go with that, you know. And nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. You know, just like each one of us is different. You know, the leaders are no different than us, except for, you know, maybe they've got different traumas in their past that enable them to do things that you wouldn't. And that's the whole thing, is most people project and they think, I'm a good person, I wouldn't do that, I can't see why they would. If I was there, I would do this. And when they project their goodness into the actions of what a politician would do, then of course they're not bad people, they're good people, right? And so this is the way it works with us, with human beings. And so no, you're not being hypnotized. You know, like I said before, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And you're not suffering some kind of psychosis. Maybe you're being lied to. And, you know, it's possible that the lies are on both sides. Right? And the truth is maybe somewhere in the middle, or not even anywhere near where they're directing our attention right now. And, you know, all we can do is the best that we can do. And if we could learn more about what happens, the truth about our own selves, and we learn to trust our inner resources and not give our power away. When we take our power back and we help other people take their power back, and other people can see for themselves and think for themselves, and when the fear strikes, you can maintain a resourceful state, a resourceful, empowered state where you can make logical decisions and not go mad like this guy suggests, and not be manipulated into believing stuff that's not true. And of course, I'm talking about the other guy, right? You know, the one that's wrong. Yeah, instead, you learn to follow your inner guidance, you know, your intuition, your inner being. And you could tell when people are lying to you. And knowing that they are lying doesn't mean that you know what the truth is. You just know that that's not it. The one thing you start to believe, or you start to wonder about, is when you're hypnotizing people, are you actually hypnotizing them and putting them into trance, or are you actually dehypnotizing and taking them out of the trance that they are in? Because the beliefs that they were thinking were wrong beliefs, and when they come into this trance, then they're able to see that, oh, that was wrong, I shouldn't have believed that, and then update and fix that all on their own. I don't have to do it. They can do it themselves. So I wake them up, they see what the problem is themselves, they fix it, and then they go back into their trance. So if you talk to a hypnotist who does this, and I talk to a lot of hypnotists out there, and a lot of them say the same thing. It's that they wonder if we're actually dehypnotizing people and taking them out of the trance that they're in. So it would almost seem that, yeah, people are in a trance, but the trance that they're in is not hypnosis. I mean, maybe it's hypnotic in nature. So the real hypnosis itself, it's not hypnosis. Hypnosis is not manipulation. So all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And hypnosis is a tool of empowerment, self-empowerment. It's not a mind control tool. It gives you control over your own mind. That's what hypnosis does. Oh, and here's another thing. Now, the CIA had a program called MK Ultra, and what they did was they took hypnosis and they tried to brainwash people with hypnosis. They tried to use mind control, and they determined that hypnosis couldn't do that. Now, some of the techniques that they used, yeah, were helpful when you added certain drugs and you did certain things, but it went way beyond that. You had to add trauma, and you had to do things to move people into a frame of mind where you could embed the right suggestions. So MK Ultra just proved that hypnosis is not mind control. And the documents have been released now, and you can go and look that up for yourself. most people don't use their inner guidance. And so, that's what hypnosis does, is it helps you to develop that part of yourself so that your intuition and all that stuff works. And you can tell whether or not other people are lying. You deal with that stuff so you're not susceptible to the charms of the narcissist. And you're not easily manipulated. If you know how hypnosis works, and you know the basic foundations, you know how suggestion works and all that stuff, then it makes you less susceptible to other people doing that stuff to you. And that's what I do, is I study that stuff and I help people learn that stuff. Anyways, I hope that clears it up for you and explains more about what's going on. I think it's just the common narcissism, people taking advantage. And so what is clear is there's a lot of manipulation, a lot of people that want to control what everyone else thinks. I think this, and so I think everybody else should. And everybody who doesn't think what I think is dumb, or they've got psychosis, or, it's always some degrading thing that everybody else has. And that's toxic. That is narcissistic, because you're not able to get into the other person's point of view and see from their point of view. Right? Empathy is both doing that and understanding the other person's point of view. Instead, we see a lot of gaslighting, toxic strategies, finger pointing, and people are becoming more and more divided. And that's not the right way to go. Right? There's also something you don't know about, or something that you might not see, or a lot of people don't recognize, but there is a huge awakening going on right now, and people are waking up. And we're not talking about being woke. That's a totally different thing. Like, people are actually coming out of their trance, and it happens in stages, and you can see a lot of people are starting to question what's going on. There's a lot of vocal people out there, but I don't think there's a lot of people who are compliant, and I don't think that they really know the truth. Well, the majority of us don't. There's very, 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 very few people who actually know what the truth is. The rest of the people are just hoping that their pick, they take the gamble and they pick a person and they go with it. When you learn hypnosis, you get to learn to take control of yourself as an empowerment tool. And you learn to be able to see and to be able to detect what's going on out there. And it opens your mind to a different level of thinking and processing stuff. Everybody's got a different idea. Who's right and who's wrong? I don't know. There's a lot of different sides out there. I'm not going to be the one to make the decision that I'm the one who knows the awesome truth, because that's what narcissism is, right? Claiming to be the one that knows is a little bit narcissistic. And so that's what I've got to say about that. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. And, drop your comments below. Make sure you give me a like. And, till next time, have a good one.